Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Season and Serve blog. My name is Melissa and in today's video I'm going to show you how to take an ingredient that you may not use very often in your kitchen but turn it into a fabulous recipe for Lunar New Year. And the ingredient that we're using today is lotus root. I'll be making my pork-stuffed lotus root recipe, which is great to bake in the oven or even better if you have an air fryer. They get super crispy on the outside and remain soft and juicy inside. So if you want to see how to make my pork-stuffed lotus root and to learn more about this beautiful ingredient, just keep on watching. We'll start off this recipe by preparing the lotus root, and if you haven't seen a lotus root before, this is what it looks like. Lotus roots are aquatic plants and they actually grow underwater, and the part that we eat is the rhizome, which is what I'm holding here. You can find lotus root pretty much year-round in Asian grocery stores, but you'll definitely be able to find them from the fall all the way through to early spring, and they will definitely be there for Lunar New Year because they signify abundance year after year. And when you're buying lotus root at the grocery store, there are a few things you want to look for. First is make sure that it has a nice smooth skin. A couple nicks here and there is totally fine, but if there's any big black spots, don't buy those. Also make sure the lotus root are really firm to the touch and that they feel heavy for their size. To prepare the lotus root for the recipe, we are going to peel it. So just take a vegetable peeler and peel off all that outside skin. The lotus root skin can be a little bit rough and textured, kind of like a russet potato, so we want to make sure we get all that off before we cook it. Next, we're going to take a sharp chef's knife and we're going to trim the tops and the bottoms of the lotus root. This is the actual tuber part where they attach onto each other and eventually onto the plant, and we want to get rid of those because that's a little too tough to eat. And when you cut off the top and bottom of the lotus root, this is what the inside looks like. I'm always amazed at how beautiful this is. Next, we want to slice the lotus root into 1/2 centimeter thick slices, and make sure you go slow and use a really sharp knife to do this because lotus root can be a little bit difficult to cut. There are tons of different recipes that you can make with lotus root, but for Lunar New Year, it is really popular to have it in soups or stir-fried. Lotus roots will also be often dried and candied, and they will be presented on the sweets platters that you often see along with other dried fruits and nuts during Lunar New Year. And of all the lotus root recipes I've cooked, this one's definitely my favorite because it is so savory with that pork filling, which we'll prepare next. Now for the filling, you'll need a pound of lean ground pork and just pop this into a mixing bowl just like this. Then into that we're going to grate a clove of garlic, and I'm using a microplane to do this because I want really fine pieces of garlic all throughout the pork filling. And once the garlic's grated, also grate some fresh ginger. I've peeled this already and I'm just grating it along the microplane again to get nice smooth pieces of ginger. And you want to aim for about 2 teaspoons. Once the garlic and ginger is grated, we'll set that bowl aside and prepare our scallions. And to prepare this, all I do is remove the bottom root end as well as the top end and then just slice it up into thin pieces. And if you want to make this recipe even better, see if you can find Chinese chives at the grocery store and use those in the place of scallions. I unfortunately couldn't find them and also wanted to make this recipe a little bit more adaptable, so scallions work perfectly. So add the scallions to the bowl and then we'll add our liquid ingredients starting with soy sauce. Here we're adding 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce, and we're also going to follow it up with 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing cooking wine. I'm also adding just a teaspoon of roasted sesame oil. And then for extra seasoning, I'm adding some ground black pepper as well as some salt just to bring everything together. And once all the ingredients have been added, we're going to mix everything together. And I like to use chopsticks to do this, but if you want to use a fork or even your hands, you can do that as well. Just make sure that everything's well mixed together and that it's nice and smooth. Now we'll set the pork mixture aside and prepare our breading station, and for this we're going to use eggs and cornstarch. You can also substitute potato starch here as well, but cornstarch is what I had on hand. I'm just breaking the eggs into a bowl and whisking them with a little bit of salt to add a little bit more flavor. Then we'll start the breading process, and to do this you want to take your lotus root and coat each side of it in the cornstarch. Now the cornstarch can clump up and stay really thick in some spots, so make sure you spread it out evenly across the lotus root and also make sure to dust off any excess. And then simply repeat this process for all of the lotus root slices. Once the lotus root are all dusted in cornstarch, we'll add the pork filling. And here I'm adding about 2 heaping tablespoons of pork filling, and I'm sandwiching it between 2 pieces of lotus root. So I'm just kind of making a little sandwich and gently pressing everything together to stick. You might want to tidy up the edges if there's pork filling sticking out, and I just press it in with my finger and just smooth it out. Once you have your first one done, just set it aside on a plate and then repeat this process for the rest of the lotus root. And if you want to get this full recipe written down with all of the measurements and directions, you will find it on my blog, and I will leave it linked in the description box below. While you're there, take a look around to see other Lunar New Year recipes that I have there. There are so many great ones available, and I hope you find one that pairs perfectly with these pork-stuffed lotus root for this year. And once all your lotus roots are stuffed with the pork filling, we are going to finally coat these in our egg. You're probably wondering what we were doing with the egg. This is where it comes in at the very end. And what we're going to do is take our lotus root, dunk it in the egg, and then place it on a parchment lined baking tray. And that's it. The egg basically acts as the breading or the coating and gets nice and crispy when baked in the oven. And if you have an air fryer setting on your oven, or you have an air fryer yourself, this recipe also works really great in there because the egg gets nice and crispy and golden brown and adds to that nice delicious texture that we have going on with the soft pork and the crunchy lotus root. Now once your lotus root are all coated and spaced out on your tray, we're going to take it over to the oven and bake them. And my range actually has an oven with an air fryer setting, which is amazing. So this is the GE Cafe induction range, and I'm setting the air fryer setting onto 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake that in the center of the oven for 25 minutes. And if you have a regular oven, you can also just bake this simply at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and it'll also turn out amazing. And as I was cooking, my cat Pearl was sitting with me in the kitchen, and she has just the most perfect loaf form ever, so I had to show you her loafing. So cute. After 25 minutes, the lotus root will be fully cooked and it'll be nice and crispy on the outside, which is beautiful. Now all we have to do is serve it up and add a few more garnishes. And to serve, I like to pile all the lotus root on a single platter and then sprinkle over some chopped scallions. This adds a little bit more color and brightens up the whole dish. Now you can absolutely serve these just as is with the scallions on top, but for me, I like to drizzle over some chili oil because it just adds more flavor and a beautiful bright color as well. So that's how you make my recipe for pork-stuffed lotus root. This recipe is perfect for Lunar New Year, and serving lotus root will bring you abundance year after year. When you bite into these, you'll get that nice beautiful crunch of the lotus root and the soft pork filling. It is a match made in heaven. Thank you so much for watching my video today. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you hit the red subscribe button down below for more amazing recipes just like this one. Also, if you want the full recipe for these pork-stuffed lotus root, you can get that on my blog, which will be linked in the description box below. And finally, make sure to check me out on TikTok and Instagram as well. I'm posting lots more ideas over there for Lunar New Year. And I also post seasonal living content, so if you're inspired to live by the beauty of the seasons, make sure you follow me there. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to enjoy the best of the season every day.